Hi, this is Daniela Wolf with Bestie Life, the podcast, and this is your community to support you through the little and not so little events that make up your day-to-day life. From the I've got this moments to the I just can't moments. We are here to empower all women to find and develop the skills they need to find peace, balance, and the bliss in their busy. Through solo episodes as well as interviews with amazing women who share their journey and their story and how it works for you. I hope you find the inspirations to make you laugh, think, as well as maybe rethink what you thought you knew, and connect as we realize that we are all living similar ups and downs and don't have to do it alone. So excited for you to hear this episode, and thanks so much for joining me today. Hi, this is Daniela with Bestie Life, the podcast. And I don't know about you, but I always feel like whether you have kids or not, this back to school time of year, beginning of fall, Labor Day is coming around the corner. It's almost like a second New Year's. It's a time for maybe resetting your goals, getting reorganized before the hustle of the holidays creep in, and just kind of putting yourself together for that final push before the end of the year. And so in this episode, I wanted to talk a bit about tips and strategies for setting and achieving realistic goals and prioritizing your self-care. Now, don't worry, I promise I'm not going to get into some overwhelming productivity kind of frenzy. I want to keep it simple, relatable, and entertaining so that you stick with me. So grab your favorite bevy, sit back, and let's get started. All right, so let's kick things off with the art of goal setting. Now, I know you might be thinking goals, that sounds like work. That sounds hard. That sounds like something that might have a lot to it. But don't worry, I've got your back. And setting goals, it is important because it's kind of like having a roadmap for your life. It gives you that direction and purpose. Kind of like if you're going to go on a trip and you're setting up your GPS, you want to have a direction. You want to know what the steps are to get to where you want to go. You don't just kind of get in the car and start going. And so it doesn't have to be massive or complicated, but it does have some pretty specific steps to it that I want to share with you. You may or may not have heard of the SMART goals approach, which is what I wanted to share with you today. It's definitely one framework for looking at goals. And it's kind of the secret sauce of goal setting because it is very simple. It breaks it down into very specific steps. And I'm not going to overload you with too much detail in this episode, as that can probably be its own episode if we dive in too deep. But I want to give you the basics so you have an idea of what your goal needs to have in it in order to make it realistic, actionable, and achievable. So to break that down, the S of SMART stands for specific. Your goal needs to be crystal clear. So instead of saying, I just want to exercise more, be very specific, like I want to walk outside for 15 minutes 3 times a week. And that's specific enough to know whether or not it actually happened. And that's kind of the next one, which is M. It needs to be measurable. So by making it specific, you automatically make it measurable because you can verify whether or not you did it. Did you go outside for 15 minutes 3 times a week? Did you go outside for 10 minutes 2 times a week? You can tell whether or not you met that goal. And so you've got specific and measurable. The third part is the A of SMART, which is achievable. Your goal needs to be doable and actually help you grow. So you want it to be something that you can actually do. If you're terrified of heights, you wouldn't put climbing Mount Everest on your goal list because that's probably not going to be as achievable, at least in the short term. Even back to the exercise example, saying you're going to go to the gym for an hour 4 times a week might not be achievable because it's pretty big. And so again, that 15 minutes, something small, something you can actually do is going to help your success in meeting the goal. You can always expand the goal, improve upon the goal, grow on it, but starting off, you want it to be very achievable. So set yourself up for success by, again, keeping it specific, keeping it measurable, keeping it achievable. And now comes the R, which is relevant. What does that mean? Is your goal even actually important to you? Or is it something you just think you, quote, should be doing? If you hate cooking, maybe taking cooking classes and becoming a gourmet chef isn't relevant or the best use of your time. You could find a goal more around like finding a meal prep service, finding simpler alternatives to help you come up with your weekly meal planning, but making sure it's relevant. You're not going to be motivated to do something that you're not actually invested in. And that can happen a lot of times when we do goals that we just think we should do or that somebody else has kind of decided for us. And this is the one that I think we sometimes forget about when it comes to the goal. Our why. Why are we doing it? What's the purpose behind it? And so to think about your goal, is it relevant? How invested are you in this? And then the last one, T, stands for time bound. And that means to kind of set a deadline. Give yourself that extra push maybe that you need because, as they say, someday is not a day on the calendar. And so again, back to the example that we're using, I'm going to walk outside for 15 minutes 3 times a week and give yourself 2 weeks to give yourself that grace that maybe the first week isn't going to be perfect. You can always keep restarting, but at least to have that deadline on the calendar, whatever you think is going to be realistic for you, knowing what other things you have built into your week, whether it's work, kids' activities, other things going on, but definitely set a deadline to that. Make it time bound so that your goal now has the structure of, again, that SMART piece: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound to actually happen, so that you're just not setting another goal that doesn't come to fruition, that can kind of mess with your mindset and your self-esteem of achieving goals, but that it's something that you're actually going to achieve and actually going to do. So I want you to think about what's a goal, just one, that's all we're picking right now. What is one goal you want to set? Walk it through those 5 pieces. If you have to, pause this, back up, re-go through them, or even write them down so that you can have those specific pieces written down for you. They say a goal that's written down is 87% more likely to happen. So by going through this process and physically writing it down as you're going along is going to help you automatically achieve that goal, because you can look at it, you can share it with others, you can definitely have it to keep referencing back to, because we don't always want to have to keep track of everything in our head, right? That's too much work, and that's not what we're looking for here. All right, awesome. So now that you've got your goal in check, I want to talk about something which is equally important that I'm super passionate about, which is self-care. Because let's face it, we're like plants. We need some TLC and some love to thrive. We need to take care of ourselves. We need to be able to have purpose and direction, because having a goal and the steps to achieve it are great. But if you don't plan for how you're going to take care of yourself in the process, you're actually potentially sabotaging your success. That's how burnout can happen. That's how maybe we get off track, because we haven't allowed the space in our time and in our day to recharge along the way, so that we're actually able to meet those goals, so that we've got the energy, that we've got the momentum, that we've got all those things in place to help us as we're taking on something new, as we're working forward towards achieving something else. So self-care as a part of our day is critical when it comes to setting and reaching our goals. And if you know me, I always say self-care isn't about those bubble baths and spa days 24/7, because even though those are great, that's not realistic. That's not sustainable. As a goal, self-care needs to have those same SMART pieces to it as well. And ultimately, it's about prioritizing your well-being, doing the things that helps you feel good, that helps you feel good about yourself. And that's what makes it so critical to your overall success, both personally and professionally. So it doesn't matter whether the goal you're working towards is in your business, is at your job, is with your family, is with your kids, is personal development. Having that self-care is going to help you in achieving every type of goal that you set up for yourself. You definitely need to make sure when you're setting up that self-care, you set up some boundaries. You look at what you're saying yes to, what you're saying no to, and just remembering you're not a superhero. You don't need to do it all. And that's totally okay, because we shouldn't be doing it all. And give yourself the variety and options with your self-care, making sure you're taking time for sleep, socialization, exercise and nutrition are just some ways to be intentional about incorporating that self-care as you're working on your goals, as well as, again, then your own time for personal development and comfort, so that might be in how you're decorating and organizing your home, how you're dressing, these types of things all together. And I have several episodes about self-care, what it looks like, how to implement it, that I can reference in the show notes as well. These types of things are all going to give you the endurance and energy you need to conquer your goals, to achieve your goals, to be able to stay motivated and on track when sometimes we don't always feel like it. And knowing that you're taking care of yourself helps you to give back. And of course, I don't always talk about this with self-care, but definitely don't underestimate the power of a good laugh. I don't think that gets recognized and acknowledged as much as part of self-care when it comes to play and laughter. By surrounding yourself with people who lift you up, share a sense of humor, it becomes almost like a mini vacation from your brain. You get to stop thinking about maybe some of the pressures of other areas going on and just remove yourself and take a break. And obviously taking a break allows yourself that time to recharge. So laughter is another simple thing to try and incorporate as you're working towards your goals. And so now we've talked about what makes up a good goal, the intention and purpose of having self-care in place and planning your self-care while you're planning your goal as well. So now we're going to look at making it happen, because you might be thinking, all right, that all sounds great, but how do I put this into action? Because I'm thinking about my goal and I'm thinking about self-care, and no worries, I've got you, and I've got some practical tips to help you implement it. So the first one is intentionally planning to focus on your goal, kind of like the goal of the day. And yep, like I said, we're just focusing on one. You've already made it very specific, small, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. And so it's kind of like being able to put it into your day as something special, writing it down and making it a non-negotiable in your calendar. Be specific as far as when is it going to happen? Where is it going to happen? How long is it going to take? And by breaking that big goal into a baby step that you can put on a very specific day and time in your calendar, even if the rest of your day kind of goes haywire, you'll know you'll have that one accomplishment in there, done, and taken care of. Next, as you're then done planning your goal, be intentional about planning in your self-care. Some of those things can happen once you've kind of automated and turned them into habits when it comes to maybe your organization, how you dress, some mindful moments throughout your day. Whatever you choose as your self-care though, make sure that you are specifically setting times in your calendar that they need to happen. And so if this is a newer practice for you and you want to make sure that you're doing a certain activity at a certain time, write it in, because that's going to help you provide that, again, structure to it. It's going to give it some importance and priority in your day. As well as another trick might even be to include some accountability, whether it's with your goal and or your self-care, sharing it with your friends, family members who can cheer you on and kind of gently nudge you back on track when you start drifting is a great way to help make sure that these things happen. And then, of course, let's not forget the power of celebrating our wins, big or small. Treating yourself, sharing your accomplishment, and basking in that sense of achievement, knowing, hey, I said I was going to do this one or two things today, and I did them. And knowing that you can achieve the things you set your mind to actually helps propel you in continuing to do that. Don't kind of overlook it or take it for granted, like, yep, I said I was going to do it, and so I did, and it doesn't matter. It's a big deal, because think of how many things we set our mind to that don't always happen. And so definitely celebrating that, even if it's a little happy dance for yourself, whatever's going to help you to acknowledge that you really did achieve something, because these things, they don't happen by magic. They don't happen overnight. That's why we call them a practice. And to give yourself the grace on the days that maybe don't flow as smoothly, you want to put just as much energy that sometimes we can put into beating ourselves up when something doesn't happen. Put that into celebrating. Put that into acknowledging your win and taking care of yourself. All right. And so that's it. That's kind of, in a nutshell, goal setting and self-care. So I know this is kind of a micro episode. I wanted to just touch on this topic because so many times we focus on just the goal and the driven part without making sure we're intentionally including that self-care, and they go together hand in hand, almost like peanut butter jelly, Captain and Tennille, coffee with cream, however you're going to remember it. Goal setting and self-care go together. And so it helps you to find that balance between chasing your dreams and giving yourself a well-deserved break. When you approach them together, it's going to work more cohesively in that way, as opposed to staying solely focused on one and then trying to smoosh the other one in after. When you're more intentional about planning them together simultaneously, they're both going to win. They're both going to happen. And so hopefully this will help give you a little bit of an edge in trying to do that. Like I said, for me, back to school time, it's almost kind of like I'm resetting for these last couple of months, getting back on my game, maybe on some things that slipped over the summer. And I hope that this gives you some of that structure and that motivation to try this out for yourself. Now, if you've listened to this and you're like, that sounds great, but I'm not really sure what I want to start with, what direction I want to move with, or which one to pick first, because I know that can be a super hard part, as well as narrowing it down for ourselves. We have big goals, big dreams, we're ambitious, and we want to do a lot. But like I said, starting off one and small is going to be the most successful. So if you need a little bit of help narrowing that down, grab a spot on my calendar. We can book a free framework focus call to really help you look at this framework and personalize it to help you narrow in on what area is going to be possibly the best one for you to focus on right now, the one that you're going to find the most success with, help you to narrow down some of the steps that you want to take, and look at what is going to be some of the best options for you going forward to help you succeed in these ways. So you can find that. The link will be included below, or it's also on my website, www.bestielife.com. I can't wait to hear how this works out for you, so please let me know in the comments, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks so much again for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please let me know any questions or comments that you have. Also, if you can please leave an Apple 5-star review so that this episode can be shared with more women. There's 2 quotes that I love. Alone we may be strong, but together we are stronger, as well as when women support each other, incredible things happen. So let's be stronger and incredible together, as well as maybe just have some fun along the way. Thanks so much and talk to you soon. Bye.